And we're live.
We are live. All right.
Hi everyone, welcome to
Welcome.
Dr. Kaufman's Live today.
That's right. Welcome everyone. So, as usual, we're gonna wait around a little bit for everyone to join. I'm sure there's gonna be some family, friends, my usual. Hi, mom, if you're on. Nice to see you again. I know, I'll probably get the messages on my phone, but I put it on not disturb, so I won't get them. But that's okay. All right, so this is the big show about red light therapy. A bunch of people have been waiting for me to talk about this stuff because there's a lot to talk about. I've been doing this for quite some time, and I promised everyone that this is, we're gonna get to know about this, and here we are. We're gonna talk about red light. Are we on? We're good? Everybody join?
Mm-hmm.
Ready? How about one more minute? What do we do?
One more minute. So
One more quick minute. All right. I made a nice little presentation for you guys. That's me right here. And we're going to talk about all that good stuff. And as you can see, I got my red light over here. People are going to be wondering, where's your goggles? Well, you don't need goggles with red light therapy, actually. That's one of the things we're going to talk about here. It feels kind of warm. It's actually a good, nice little light. I'm thinking of doing this myself at home. But that's one of the things we're going to talk about is that this is kind of like maybe a mini revolution in plastic surgery and aesthetic medicine. There's lots of new uses for light therapy, for red light therapy. So we'll get to all that. All right, are we ready?
Yeah.
Let's get started?
Yes.
All right, welcome again. I'm Dr. Daniel Kaufman, board certified plastic surgeon. I've been working for 1,000 years and I've treated countless patients. Long time I've been doing this. That's the only thing I've ever done. Plastic surgery well, now I only do the body. You know what I do. I do tummy tucks, liposuction, high def lipo, ab etching, BBLs, fat grafting to the breasts. What else do we do? Everything and anything. Reductions, augmentation, lifts, combinations, body lifts, massive weight loss, plastic surgery. All right, we're on what? Body by Kaufman, Miami, and we're on the TikTok channel, yeah?
Yes.
All right, let's get started. I think this is where we're going. Yeah, there we go. All right, so light therapy. We're going to talk about what light has been used for. Light therapy has been used for thousands of years, since ancient times. These days we know that it does good to the skin. Actually, it's how we get vitamin D in our body. Lots of great benefits to light therapy. We've known about them for a long time. But since the advent of the invention of light, the incandescent light bulb, the laser, LEDs, that's when light therapy really kind of took a massive turn and just kind of blew up, and it's becoming a very big thing these days, and there's lots of applications for it, and we're going to talk all about it. So let's talk a little bit about the electromagnetic spectrum. So there's radiation all around us. If you don't realize that yet, then I don't know where you're living, but there's radiation from everything. Obviously from the sun we get all kinds of different waves in the atmosphere or in the environment that we live in, and we're not even aware of them. So when we're talking about different kinds of radiation, there's, let's say, radio waves, television, the waves that we get, broadcast media. Those are very low energy level waves. Microwaves we use in our home, those are forms of radiation. Within that, we have the visible light. So light is its own kind of radiation, and we'll talk about that in a bit. And then there's other kinds of radiation like X-rays, which we use to see through different tissues in the body, to take a look at bones, for example. There's gamma radiation, which could be very harmful to our body. So all of these types of radiation are within the electromagnetic spectrum. What we're going to be talking about is light. Now, the first light that we can think of that we see every day is obviously the sunlight. Sunlight is composed of lots of different types of light, all the different colors, obviously, that we can see. It's diffuse, it's dispersed, it's obviously not focused unless we focus it. So light energy is kind of the basis of all this, is understanding what sunlight is about. Now, somewhere in the 1960s, lasers were invented and they became a thing. We'll talk about that. Let's see who knows. Laser is actually an acronym. Who knows what it stands for? Put the answer in. Let's see. You can tell me if people know. I'll give you the answer in a moment. But laser light is a very focused beam of light. It's monochromatic, meaning it's only one color, which means it's confined to one small area of a wavelength of light. Remember, light travels in little packets called photons, right? These are packets of energy. They have no mass, but they have energy. And they also have a function of waveforms, all right? So with waves, when we talk about sound waves, light waves, we're talking about the frequency of those wavelengths that come in. So this is a whole bunch of physics that maybe we don't want to get too much into the details of, but suffice it to say that laser light is one single color. It's one confined little form of wavelength, which is where that light would be seen in the visible spectrum. So it's a focused beam. Now, in the 1990s, LED, which is another acronym, see if we know what that stands for, right? LED lights came about, and they gave a much different kind of beam of light. So those light beams are non-monochromatic. They could be of several different wavelengths, usually not like sunlight, which contain a bunch of different wavelengths, but it's usually confined to a few areas. So it's less of a focused beam. Of course, it's dispersed, and it has, because of that, it has different kinds of wavelengths, and it has a lower level of energy that's transmitted. Obviously, it makes sense that light from an LED, like I have on me right now, is very low energy and doesn't really hurt the tissues the same way that a laser could. Obviously, I wouldn't want a laser to be focused on my eyes or focused directly on my skin for a prolonged period of time, because obviously there's thermal injury or burn with that. We'll get more into that in a moment. Now, red light and infrared, or what we call near infrared spectrum, that comes in a defined spectrum of the specific wavelength, which is what gives the characteristic red color. So that's what we're going to be focused on for the rest of the presentation is red light. Let's see. Now, light therapy. Okay, so let me just get here. So what has light been used for in the past? Let me just make sure we're moving on my right. There we go. Okay, so light therapy has been used for a whole bunch of different medical conditions. There are honestly too many to name, and I've just taken the time to write a few of the obvious ones that that come about all the time. So acne and dermatitis. Actually, funny enough that light therapy actually was something that won the Nobel Prize in 1903. It's funny reading through all the history of this, preparing for all this over the all this time I've been doing this. It was actually used to treat lupus vulgaris, which is the skin form of tuberculosis. Obviously, it's not around these days. We've almost gotten rid of that disease, but we used to see a lot of it more than, close to 150 years ago. And light therapy was one of those first uses of light to treat a medical condition, so that's where we get that from. And obviously there's a whole bunch. Alopecia, hair loss and male pattern baldness, it's used for that. It's used for bone regeneration. You can see I have down there osteoporosis, osteomyelitis, which is an infection of the bone, different kind of cancers, wound healing, a whole bunch of different medical conditions that light has been used for. And the most recent use of light therapy is obviously in aesthetic medicine, to treat various wrinkles and different contour irregularities of the skin. Acne, obviously, that's the first one we put in there. So as you can see, light therapy has been used for many different things, and the indications for light therapy are expanding. And as a matter of fact, they're expanding in this sense. What I'm going to talk about today, that's probably the biggest advance that we've had in light therapy in past few years. All right, the clinical effects. Let's get to here. I'm doing this through two different laptops here. Okay, so clinical effects of red light therapy. We get what's called photobiomodulation. Big fancy word. We're just going to call that PBM. And PBM is essentially a conglomerate of beneficial physiological effects that our cells and tissue undergo when we receive different forms of light. So red light specifically, that's what we're going to talk about. That induces photobiomodulation to a great degree. And amongst the effects that we see within photobiomodulation or PBM are all kinds of effects that indicate to us that the cells are working overtime. They are more active than what they were without the absorbance of that light. So we see a whole bunch of different scientific studies out there. And let me tell you something, there's a lot of literature out there. It's really tough to get through. I don't think I'll ever be able to get through all of the scientific literature that's out there, because it comes in so many different forms. There's so many different areas within medicine where you can read about this. In experimental medicine, where people do experiments not on just animals and they do it on even on cell cultures, on genetic experiments to see what kind of gene expression we get in different circumstances when light is shown to different cells and tissues. It's really tremendous what's out there. And I really, the more I've been reading about this over, the past, several months that I've been working on this, the more you realize, wow, there's just so much information out there, and it's really hard to absorb all of it. So this is what I'm here for, so that my beloved audience doesn't have to do all this stuff, so I can give you the bare bones, the crux of the matter, what you need to understand. So in PBM, we see that there's an increase in cellular signaling. That means that the cells, remember, cells within tissues, they're always communicating with each other. They do it through different ways, through expressing different proteins, sending out different hormones between each other. And then we have these kind of feedback loops where cells communicate to each other how they're doing in this part of the tissue and this part of the body. And this is how the body grows and adjusts to all the different challenges that we have within our body. So we definitely see an increase in cellular signaling. We also see cellular proliferation. So in different cell cultures, we see that different cell lines are actually proliferating. They're growing when they're exposed to various wavelengths of light, specifically the red light wavelengths and infrared light in that 700-800 nanometer range that we discussed. What else we got here? We got a lot of expression of genes that are involved, and this is big in the bone, in the orthopedic literature, genes that are expressed that are involved in regeneration and repair of that type of tissue. And bones actually are very interesting types of cells. I'll get to that in a moment of why that's interesting, but there's a lot of literature there within the orthopedic community. And what do I have here? The most important, probably that one that people talk about a lot in the wound healing repair, is the increase in energy production of cells. How that happens, I'll talk about that in, I guess, the next slide where we are. All right, I put this one in there. This is from one of the review articles that popped up in my literature, in the plastic surgery literature. This actually comes from the Aesthetic Surgery Journal, which is a very highly respected journal in our, it's a peer-reviewed journal in the plastic surgery community. And I have an article published there in a few years back there. But you can see from here, I'm gonna get this up close to the camera. Can you see this? Can you see the level of detail of all the different factors and what we call growth factors and things that, again, these are the communication molecules, the signaling molecules that cells actually emit within one another to help communicate between themselves so that they can grow and live in a coordinated fashion within the tissues. So you can see there's a whole bunch. This is actually just a summary slide of some of the effects that we know of today of what red light, and actually blue light as well, but specifically red and infrared light therapy does to you. And that's why I said that I put this little cartoon in here and to show that, this is the science that we have today, but this is only what we think we know. A lot of if you look close in this, and you can freeze frame the Shalvi here, if you look at a lot of the explanations here, a lot of the way that we explain these things of how these beneficial effects happen, the PBM that I spoke of earlier, we don't really know what happens, right? So we can describe it in various ways, but as I said earlier, there's a lot more research that's going on today into investigating how these effects happen and how we actually get the beneficial effects of red light and why we can use it towards the end that I'm using it for. So lots more to find out as future moves on. Now let's talk a little bit about cellular respiration and how cells actually live, what metabolism is. I know metabolism is one of those words, it's a mouthful too, that people throw around, just because, it sounds kind of neat, but what does it actually mean? Well, it actually means the actual processes that cells undergo in order to survive. Now, if you think of each cell that we have in our body, and there's trillions of them, each cell belongs to a specific type of tissue and has a specific purpose. Now, all cells have the same genetic material, but different cells express different genes in different ways because obviously they have different tasks. A cell that is destined to be bone cell is different than a cell that's destined to be muscle cell or a nerve cell. Of course, these cells would have different growth patterns and they would be doing different things throughout their lifetime. But all cells have to produce energy. And the way that they produce energy is that they have little organelles. Remember, our body has organs like liver, lungs, spleen. Cells have organelles. It's basically little areas in the cell where different tasks get done, where different functions of the cell are done. Mitochondria, maybe you remember this. I'm taking you back to high school biology, college anatomy, wherever you learned this, but the mitochondria are these little tiny organelles, and you can see you can see them somewhere in there in that little picture, that schematic. The mitochondria are the organelles in the cell that produce the energy. They're the ones who make the currency of energy for the cell, and that specifically is ATP. That molecule's adenosine triphosphate is a molecule with 3 phosphate molecules within it, or elements within it, and that is, when we make ATP, that is the molecule that we can use to burn up so that we can do the functions of the cell. So when we're talking about burning sugar, burning calories, all that stuff, when we look at that formula, we take oxygen, we take glucose, which is a carbohydrate. That's the most basic form of carbohydrates, which we break down when we digest things. We can also make glucose in our body, but essentially that goes towards when we get that reaction together, we make carbon dioxide, which we breathe off, that's CO2, water, which we reuse in the body, and we make that famous molecule ATP. All of that stuff happens within the mitochondria. And the mitochondria specifically are upregulated when they get bombarded with red light photons, with red light therapy. That's why I included this slide over here so that you understand that when our body is exposed to red light therapy, we increase the activity, the function of the mitochondria, and we produce more energy in our cells. That's what the science tells us. Now, how that relates into what we're talking about, we'll get there in a moment. Let's see what we're talking about here. Yes, mesenchymal cells. I told you this is going to get very scientific-y over here, but it's kind of simple. So let's think about this. When we are an embryo, we basically get divided into 3 layers of the embryo, and then from there everything else develops, and obviously it takes 9 months in the womb and so forth. But the 3 layers are the ectoderm, the outside, where cells become the skin, the hair, things like that. The endoderm, which is the lining on the inside, which will become, let's say, the stomach and the intestine. And then there's a layer called the mesoderm, also known as mesenchymal layer. I know it's a fancy word over here, but it just means the layer within the middle. That's what mesenchymal, right? That's what it actually means in Latin. It's the layer in between. Now, why is that important? Because those types of cells, and those cells usually make fatty tissue, they make muscle, they make bone, they make all the stuff on the inside, the building blocks of our body. Now, red light therapy has been shown to induce a great deal of photobiomodulation. Remember, PBM is a conglomeration of all those beneficial physiological effects on cells and tissues by red light. So we know that those mesenchymal cells, the cells that derive from the middle part of the embryo, those are all greatly affected and upregulated by red light therapy. Why that's important? Again, remember I said earlier that the orthopedic surgery literature, the people who deal with bones and bone healing issues, there's a lot of good literature on the beneficial effects, the PBM that we get with red light therapy on bony cells. And also we see it on fatty tissue cells. Fatty tissue cells are mesenchymal cells. They are cells that derive from that middle portion or that middle layer of our embryonic stage. And that's why it led me, after doing months, maybe even years of research about red light therapy, that kind of, lit a bulb. The red light bulb went off above my head, and I said, well, wait a minute. I use fat cells all the time. I deal with fatty tissue cells more than any other doctor that I know out there because I manage fatty tissue all the time. I suck it, I cut it, I move it, I transplant it. That's got to be something that we can explore. And that's when I came up and I realized that if this is what happens, then yeah, LED, red light therapy, for sure has to have a positive, beneficial effect. That PBM must affect fatty tissue cells, not only that I work on in the body, but that I suction out and that I transfer back in. That's when I realized that applying red light therapy to fat grafting is the way of the future. This is the way, looking at all the evidence that we have, this is the best way that I can guarantee to you that I'm doing the most that I can to make sure that your fatty tissue cells that I suctioned out of your abdomen, flanks, wherever, and implant in the buttocks, in the breast, wherever, they're gonna last for the longest duration. That's gonna increase the survival of the graft cells. Now, some of the literature out there addresses, should we use laser or LED? Did anyone answer, by the way, Amanda, for the acronyms? Did they know what it meant?
No, everybody said
no
that
one?
They weren't familiar with it.
They're familiar. Okay. All right, so let's talk about LED versus laser light, right? So remember, laser light is a focused monochromatic beam, which means it's going to have very short wavelengths and high frequency, which means very high power effects. It's got a lot of energy. That kind of makes sense, right? When we're doing laser, let's say laser liposuction or laser for resurfacing of the skin, not that I do that much of it anymore, but for aesthetic medicine purposes, when we do that, we always have to use those laser goggles. Why? Because an errant beam of laser light can injure the retina, can injure the skin as well, of course. So it can give you what's called thermal injury or burn, right? So that's the laser. With LED, remember what we said about that, it's usually non-monochromatic, it's more diffuse. The beams of light from LED, they're not focused or collimated, they're not all parallel and all going in one direction. They're dispersed, they're diffuse, which means the wavelengths are going to be longer, which means that the frequency is going to be not that high, which means ultimately it's low level energy. It's a lot safer to use in any application than laser light. So what does that mean for medical purposes? Well, LEDs is a lot easier to work with. What do we have here? We see that there's a lot of advantages to it. Some of the advantages are, well, it's cheaper, right? It doesn't take that much to create a light like this versus a laser beam that's obviously much more focused. Laser beams actually come with much bigger machines. They're bulkier. It takes more energy to focus that light and produce that kind of beam. And look at that, my timer just went off here, but I'm gonna turn it back on because I like it so much and it adds a nice effect over here. And what we can do with LED lights is, because of its increased safety, because of its ease of use, we can use it in many more applications, even in wearable devices. I know that's actually some plastic surgeons now are doing, they're selling the masks out there, which you can wear at home. There are different kind of helmets that you can wear to enhance hair growth, to add it, if you're treating alopecia or male pattern hair baldness, you can use it for that. The facial masks are to reduce wrinkling and the signs of aging. So you can see that red light therapy is becoming a lot more useful, and it's out there. So a lot of people are going to be using it, but I don't know anyone yet who's using it in the way that we're using it, that I'm using it right here to increase the graft cell survival. And that's basically we're getting down to the conclusions here. As you can see, there's a lot of science behind this. Red light therapy, and I'm a skeptic, and actually, people have been asking these diplomas, one of those diplomas, I don't know, they're not all up there. There's a whole box that I just brought up from mom's basement in New York to bring it, because it was doing nothing good over there. It was just taking up space. So I just hung up a few there, but one of my diplomas that I have is actually, I have a master's in biomedical engineering, which I got during my residency time. If you look at my CV or my resume, you could see it somewhere in there. But that's just indicative of my constant kind of desire to find out the best techniques and technology. Remember, we're living in amazing times these days. So that's something I've always kind of taken on myself, is to find out what are the best techniques and using the best technology to improve the results from my patients. And I'm a big skeptic. I didn't used to, I've used so many different machines, and I was always very I didn't want to just say that it worked until I found out the science and I tried it myself and got the experience with it. With red light therapy, this is one of those things I'm glad to be able to say, hey, there is real scientific evidence behind all this stuff. Red light therapy is a burgeoning, it's coming up, but it's a bona fide, absolutely clinically proven method of effecting photobiomodulation. Again, fancy words, you could just say PBM. If you're talking to me, ask me about PBM. Those are the beneficial effects that we are talking about: the cell proliferation, the cell signaling, the increase in expression of genes related to regeneration and repair. All of that adds to an increased rate of fatty tissue cell survival. Remember, the biggest problem, the number one problem, and every plastic surgeon in the country should be able to corroborate this. What's the biggest problem that people complain to me and to you about? It's loss of the fatty tissue cells, loss of the volume, and a reduction in the cosmetic effect that we have. Fat grafting, I do today, well, I've done this for a long time. Obviously, the big three fat grafting areas that we talk about these days are, number one, BBL. That's more common than any other fat graft area in the history of plastic surgery. Obviously, it's gotten a lot of acclaim over the past few years, 2 decades probably. Fat grafting to the breast, an old technique that's gotten some revitalization as of late. I've been doing a whole bunch of that throughout my career, and that's a big, that's a big procedure that many young ladies are going for these days, because you can just avoid implants. Take the fat graft, and if we're happy with that, that's great. We can always go back to doing implants if we want more volume or more shaping. But if we're going to do some lipo, why not use the fat? It's your own natural tissue. You don't reject it. It doesn't get infected. If it's done correctly, it's, all positives on that. Obviously, the number one problem that people complain of all the time is loss of the fat graft volume. The third area I just wanted to mention is facial fat grafting. That's something that's done fairly often. And again, there's other techniques that we can talk about with that. I restrict my surgeries. These days, I'm all body, anything from the neck above. You can find other doctors to do that. I don't do any of those surgeries anymore. But suffice it to say, red light therapy being as scientifically proven as it is, that from my research, I use it now completely. I use it on all my fat grafting procedures. I use it on all my BBLs. I use it on all my autologous fat grafting breast augmentation. That's what AFGBA means. It means a natural breast augmentation. We use your own fat, just like a BBL. No implants, no rejection, no infection. And again, with the use of red light therapy, your long-term survival of the fat graft cells is going to be increased. Your long-term results will be maintained. Look, you've seen my BBLs on the table. You've seen my fat grafting to the breast. They look amazing on the table, if I say so myself. And I don't have to say so myself. Plenty of my patients tell me that it looks awesome. But what I'm always concerned with, I want that to last for the long term, because look, you invest a bunch in, in looking and feeling your best, right? You take time off from work and from family and school and all these things. You get down to Miami from wherever you come from, and, I see patients from everywhere across North America and even the world. But you invest the time and you invest the money to get great results with me, with BBL or fat grafting to the breast. Now, I'm going to tell you, I'm doing whatever I can to make sure that it doesn't only look great on the table, but that it stays that way for the long term. That's why I've been doing this red light therapy thing. I honestly don't know of any other surgeon, any other plastic surgeon in the country who's doing this. I think there may be a facial plastic surgeon in Washington. I got to check it out, who's been using red light therapy for facial fat grafting. Don't know his name. I gotta explore a little bit more. But again, I don't know anyone who's using this yet on BBLs and fat grafting to the breast. But I suspect that after they see this and after people get clued into the science, I think this might become the standard of care. I think a lot more surgeons are going to be doing this sooner rather than later. And let's see what happens with that. I think that's probably it. I see there's a bunch of questions people are asking. All right, let's bring it on. Let's talk. We can leave this up over here, maybe go back to some of the slides, but yeah, let's shoot some questions.
Okay, before we go into questions, remember if you want a free consultation, you can always call us at 305-507-8848, or you can DM us either on our TikTok page or Dr. Kaufman's Instagram page.
Which is?
Body by Kaufman, Miami.
All right. What question you got for me?
Okay, so the first question we are getting a lot is, can it be used for fat transfer to breast?
Yes, of course. Yes. So that's what we were talking about. Remember, when we do liposuction and fat grafting, the first step is obviously doing the liposuction. And then once we collect the fatty tissue, and different surgeons do it in different ways. There's many different contraptions and different kind of systems to be able to separate the fatty tissue from the fluids, the blood that obviously gets sucked out with it. So I do it in in my particular way. Obviously, it all has to be done on the surgical field. It has to be done sterile. And again, I've tried all kinds of different machines to do it. I use a very simple system now where I let gravity do the decantation, the separation of the fatty tissue cells. During all this process, from the moment that I take out, when I suck out the lipoaspirate, that's what I actually suck out. People think it's just pure fat. It's not. It starts out yellow and gets a little bit more pink and more red. That's because there's bleeding that happens. And we have to purify the fatty tissue so that we can re-inject it back into the buttocks or the breast. During that whole time, no matter where the fatty tissue is going, whether to your buttocks or to your breasts, it is being irradiated with the red light. So yes, the benefits are going to be felt whether we do it in the buttocks, in the breast. Absolutely, we can do fat grafting, red light therapy on fat grafting to the breast. Yes.
Okay. The next question we got is, can you use red light on a tummy tuck scar?
Great question. Yeah, so that's coming up. All right, so we're gonna have to leave that for another talk because again, there's a lot of stuff to talk about there. So yes, there have been plenty of usages of red light therapy. There's different machines out there to irradiate the skin, and there's definitely great effects on the skin. Actually, which slide was that? That one, the one where we're all, this slide is actually showing some of the effects that are felt when red light is irradiating the skin, because it actually can penetrate the skin into the layers beneath. So there's going to be a lot more to talk about with that. As far as how it helps with scarring, for sure it has some kind of beneficial effects. We don't know exactly how it works, but yeah, we're going to be able to use red light therapy on tummy tucks, on body lift scars. Remember what I said, one of the big advantages to red light over laser is that this kind of light, the light that's put out by LEDs, it's diffuse, it's low energy. Look how close I'm sitting to it. I can even look at it. I mean, I don't want to look at it too long because it's a little bothersome, but it doesn't actually injure the retina. It doesn't do the same thing as a laser could do. So the thermal injury, it's practically not there. So definitely red light can be used on scars, on the skin, and that's something I'm exploring as we speak. And soon enough, yes, maybe we'll start using that. Stay tuned for more on that. That's a great question. Who asked that? Kudos for you. Big thumbs up on listening to the lecture over here. But I love doing this. It's fun. By the way, everyone who tells me when you come to see me and they're like, you see how they are, they go, they get a little, it's like a meeting a celebrity, whatever. When they tell me, I always ask people, because they tell me, I've been stalking your page for a couple of years already. I always say, well, do you learn something from the page? Do you get something out of the videos? And invariably, they all tell me, like, yes, I do learn something. I get something out of it. That's why I'm doing these videos. That's why I do all this, all the research, all the reading. And boy, I've read so much about light therapy. I don't know if anyone could read anymore, but it's been a long time coming. And the reason why I do it is so that you, my beloved patients, past and future, can be better informed so that you can make better decisions on how to use plastic surgery in the best way in your life. So yeah, keep watching the videos. This is why I make it, so that we can all get educated together and find out more on the benefits of plastic surgery and red light therapy. What's the next question?
Okay, the next question. A lot of people recognize my voice after.
Oh, look at that. You're becoming a little celeb now, huh?
Oh
You might have to make an appearance one of these days. But it's okay. It's okay.
The next question is, can you use red light therapy on a lipo 360 or a BBL?
BBL for sure, because that's the usage that I'm working on right now. And by the way, remember, this is new stuff. Okay, this is stuff that I'm just working on developing, and I'm kind of gathering the scientific evidence out there and developing my own protocols on how to use red light therapy in the best way. Definitely on BBL, remember, with the best usage that I found for it is the increasing of the fat graft cell survival because of that PBM effect that we get on cells. So for sure on BBLs, any fat grafting case that I do, and again, the major ones are fat grafting to the buttocks, the BBL, and fat grafting to the breast. B-boob-L, I guess I call it. I don't know if that catches. B-boob-L, maybe. But I guess it's, I don't know. I thought it was funny, but if you don't, let me know. And if you do, let me know as well. But yeah, for sure, I'm going to be using it, as I said, on every fat graft case that I can. For just lipo cases, not sure yet what that does. But remember, as I said a moment ago, there are definitely effects of red light therapy because it is absorbed through the skin. As I said earlier than that, there is a mask out there. I know there's a plastic surgeon who's actually selling that mask that you can actually wear at home to reduce facial wrinkles and all the signs of aging. For sure, I know that there's been around the little helmet with the red light that people have used for after hair transplant, or just even on its own to treat alopecia or regular male pattern hair loss. So there's a lot of uses for it. You're probably going to be seeing it in more kinds of surgery. Maybe some surgeons will start combining it with facelift, other kinds of, or eyelids. Again, there's a lot of, let's say, chatter about what's going to happen in the future. I'm trying to kind of see what my colleagues are going to come up with, but the way that I'm using it for fat grafting, I think it makes all the best sense in the world. And again, the science is there. We're going to keep finding out more and more about it. So maybe you heard it here first. Maybe. What's next?
I think the doctor is called Dr. Dennis Gross, I think.
Who's a facial plastic surgeon who's using...
Yeah.
Yeah. We're going to have to see. We'll see. And hey, listen, if they're using it, whoever's using it, props to you. And maybe we should connect. Maybe we should talk about this stuff. Maybe share some information. I think the public, the patients deserve this kind of stuff. I guess whoever you are, if you're a plastic surgeon, facial plastic surgeon, or dermatologist, or anyone who's involved in aesthetic medicine, and you're thinking of using red light therapy, or you have been using red light therapy, come on over. Yeah, bring it over. Let's collab. Let's do something. I'd love to hear your experience about red light therapy. Again, I think this is one of those avenues that, in just a few years, you might hear everybody using it, but it's something that's still being developed as we speak. What's next?
Okay, the next one we're getting a lot is, does red light therapy burn?
No, not at all. I've been sitting next to it the whole time through here, and I don't. Yeah, it's like it feels like any other light. Maybe a little bit of a heat from it, but again, remember, one of the big advantages to LED as opposed to laser light therapy, because there's plenty of uses for laser light, like laser lipolysis, right? Everyone remembers, I guess, smart lipo was a big thing with laser lipo. There's a few other names over the years for it, where laser light was used inside with probes to melt the fat. Again, there's different uses for it, but with lasers, comes a little bit of a danger. The danger of thermal burn on the inside, on the outside for laser surfacing. You have to be careful of that. And obviously, anyone who's had laser surfacing, let's see if you comment right there, below right now, if you've had, you can say, yeah, you get burned from it, right? Why? Because of the high frequency, short wavelength, the collimated focused beams of lasers make it obviously more dangerous than any other color light. You have to wear the goggles. Everybody knows, if you've been in the OR with me, when I've used laser light way back when with liposuction, we always have to use those little goggles I've been sitting here the whole time I've been doing this. I haven't used goggles. When I use this in the OR, my staff doesn't use goggles. We don't need any of those extra safety precautions because LED is super safe. Laser, or not laser, LED light, red light therapy. Look, I've been sitting here, nothing to worry about. What's next?
Okay. Before we go into the next question, remember if you want a free consultation, you can always DM us or call us at 305-507-8848.
And DM us on Body by Kaufman Miami. That's the Instagram handle. All right.
Or TikTok page, Miami Life Cosmetic Center.
Awesome.
Okay, so the next question we're getting is that the same light that you would use for your surgery?
Yes, as a matter of fact, it is. I got we have this. I have another one, and yes, this is the one that I use in surgery. Okay. I'm probably gonna have to get more because the volume's going up, and and maybe I want to take this home with me. Get rid of some of these wrinkles over here. I know, maybe not this deep one over here, but I'm proud of this one. This is because I focus so much on what I'm doing. But anyway. Okay. You can see this on some of those when you shoot me doing the OR stuff. You can always see that wrinkle over here, right? Mm-hmm. I don't know. I'll wear it with pride. What's next?
Okay, the next question is, can you use red light therapy on a tummy tuck procedure?
Well, yeah, you can. Again, remember, that's what so for now, my protocol is to use it specifically for fat grafting to increase the fat graft cell survival. Now, beyond that, when we use it, why would we use it or how would we use it in a tummy tuck? I'm working on those protocols. You got to give me time, ladies and gentlemen. I can't do all this all at once. And I still have to go home and dictate all my cases, okay? So there's a lot of work to be done. Eventually, though, as I said, there will be more uses for red light therapy within different kinds of surgery. That question that someone asked earlier, one of the first questions, I think a lot is going to be said about red light therapy and improving scars. So that's coming up in the future. Exactly how we use it, I still don't know. I'm working on all that. So you got to give me time. And look, I'm calling on all my plastic surgery colleagues out there, all right? All you board certified plastic surgeons, American Society of Plastic Surgeons, the Aesthetic Society, all the diplomas over there. All the surgeons, the plastic surgeons in my club, the club I belong to, come, let's see what you're doing with it. I mean, this is great stuff. I want to see what people are thinking about. And again, I think you heard it here first, but this is going to be a big thing.
Okay, and the last two questions. Okay, when doing the BBL procedure, the red light therapy, how long will your results stay?
It's a great question. So, right, let's get back to fat graft loss, because that's, again, the number one problem that people experience when they get fat grafting procedure. Again, the big ones I do is BBL and B-boob-L, or fat grafting to the breast. You like that one, huh? Let's see if it sticks. Right? So the question is, how long does the fat graft stay? The answer is, it is variable. Nobody knows the answer. When you talk to a plastic surgeon, they may, just to throw out a quick answer, they may say, okay, within a year, 2 years, most people would lose 10, 20, some would even say maybe 30%, 25% is a figure that's thrown around out there. Some surgeons say it's bigger than that. They say it's even 50%. I doubt it's that high. Probably if I had to put a number and you just said, hey, just pick a number, I would say 75% to 80% will survive. Maybe you lose somewhere around 20%. Now, that's a completely, it's a fictitious number. And why? Because the fat graft survival rate will never be the same between one person and another. The reason why? The same reason why any kind of healing, a scar, whatever it is that we're talking about, will be different in one person than another. People are different. They have different genetics. They have different environmental influences on them. They have different diets, different exercise regimens. Everything is different between one person and another. The only one that you could actually maybe compare to is your identical twin if you have surgery at the same time. And how often does that happen? It's happened to me with fraternal twins quite a few, but identical twins, maybe not. But anyway, the point is that different people will have different kind of wound healing and different kinds of fat graft cell survival. What do we know about that, about fat graft survival that detracts from it? Well, smoking, diabetes, any kind of chronic medical problems with wound healing issues, just being older, being decrepit, being with a lot of comorbidities, putting direct pressure on the fat graft cells. All those things are going to detract from their survival. What will enhance their survival? Well, not smoking, preferably if you've never smoked in your lifetime, right? Being non-diabetic, having no issues with the vasculature. Remember, the fatty tissue cells that I suck out from the harvest area and I place in the recipient zone, they have to survive somehow. How do they survive? By new blood vessels growing into the area and reviving those blood or those fat graft cells. Which means if you're a smoker, diabetic, and any one of those chronic issues, wound healing issues, all that is going to take away from it. If you are devoid of those conditions, if you're young, healthy, physically fit, if you keep the pressure off, keep moving so that the blood keeps flowing in the surrounding areas, all those things are going to help in increasing the fat graft survival. And now, what else can increase your fat graft survival is irradiance of the fat graft cells before we replace them back into your body with red light therapy. So this is one of those ways that I can tell you I'm doing the most that I can to help in increasing the fat graft cell survival and guaranteeing that those beautiful results we can get on the table are going to last in the long term. What's the next question? Is this the last one? Do we have time?
No, this is the last one.
Okay. But I'm sure we're going to talk more about that. There's more questions there, right?
Yeah.
A whole bunch.
We can do in the next slide. We can do.
Great. All right, so let me know, I guess, whatever questions you have about red light therapy or anything else, BBL, high def lipo, tummy tucks, what else? Body lift, breast augmentation, you name it. I do it here. You know what? Next time I'll show you. I've gotten a bunch of cute gifts from everyone. This one is the one I want to show. This one I promised the patient I would show. Look, you see, she got me a little gift and it says, look, these are other surgeons. Can you see it? And this is me. It says you. I'm a unicorn. How nice. You know I love my gifts. There's a bunch more here, but we can't show. We won't show those now. I'll show you those next time we do this. All right? We got to close?
Yeah.
All right. What's the last words from Amanda?
Okay, thank you everyone for coming to our live. If you want to set up a free consultation, you can DM Body by Kaufman Miami or Miami Life Cosmetic Center on TikTok, or you can call us at 305-507-8848.
Awesome. All right, we're going to do this soon again, maybe what, in like 2 weeks?
Yeah.
Another Thursday, 3 p.m., my usual time.
Mm-hmm.
All right, thanks everyone for watching. Hi, Mom, Dad, whoever's watching, my family. Hope you enjoy this, and again, hope you learn something out of all this fancy science over here. The conclusions are the most important over here. Remember, red light therapy, I'm doing this for you to increase the fat graft cell survival, to get you the best long-term results. You heard it here first. Yeah. I'm Dr. Kaufman, the BBL Genie, signing off. We'll see you all soon.
Your mom actually said, "Dear Daddy, Mama and Papa are proud of you."
Oh, thanks so much. I love you. We'll see you soon next time.
Bye, guys.
Bye.